Hi everyone, this is Linda, and so I'm going to show you how to create an in the hoop zipper pouch just in your embroidery machine. And this video was done using the Epic 2, but can be done in the original Epic and any other machine that has the ability to bring in sewing machine stitches. Don't forget to like my YouTube channel and subscribe to it so you know when I actually add changes. Most of my videos are about the software, but this one happens to be about the machine. So we're going to learn about using your sewing machine stitches in embroidery mode. We're going to use the built-in applique shapes in embroidery mode. And you need either the Epic or the Epic 2. Video again was done using the Epic 2. So some of the icons in the original Epic may be in a different place, but I think you'll get the idea. It can also be done in the Sapphire 85, the Brilliance 80, the Diamond Royale, the Ruby Royale, with some changes in the icons and what the stitch numbers are. So there is kind of a quick list of supplies in the first part of the video, and hopefully it works for you. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to use your embroidery machine that you can bring in your sewing machine stitches into embroidery mode and actually create an in the hoop zipper pouch. On the Epic page itself, there's actually a document that I put together a couple years ago on creating a file to insert a zipper in embroidery mode, and it's in the file section. It's using the 120 by 120 hoop, so it's a little smaller than what I'm going to do here. This is the 240 by 150. But it's pretty much the same, and it was written for the original Epic. Now I'm going to do this in the Epic too. So any machine you have that can bring in sewing machine stitches into embroidery mode and have the applique stitches that we're going to use to put everything together. So it's pretty simple. So let's get started. So I have my 240 by 150 hoop, and I have it with tearaway stabilizer. That's a really important piece. Now, the other thing I'm going to have is my different pieces of fabric. Now, I'm going to put a pocket with this one. This one, I have a front pocket. I'm just doing approximations. Don't worry about how exact this is. You just need to have them big enough to cover your hoops. So this one was originally started at 12 by 7. I folded it in half to make a 6 by 7, and I kind of fussy cut it, so I have that little sewing machine there in the front. Now you could use any of your stitch samples that you've actually put together and make your pocket, but I folded it in half. I put a little piece of fusible interfacing in the center just to give it a little bit of stiffness. I don't want it terribly stiff. I have the top piece for where my zipper is going to be. Again, you could fussy cut that if you wanted to do. Top front zipper piece is approximately 8 by 7. I folded it in half, so it's 4 by 7, and again, I have a piece of that stiffener in the center. I have my front bottom for the zipper, and it's 18 by 7 that I folded in half and made it 9 by 7. And again, piece of stiffener in the inside just to give it some more stiffness. My back piece, it's about 12 by 7. It's a little exaggerated, I know, but that's okay. Again, I still have the fusible on the back. I have a couple of little pieces that I use that I'm going to use for straps, and I'm going to put a little ring in there, and then I can attach a handle. I have a zipper to match, and you want to make sure that it covers more than the width of your hoop. So this one is quite a bit larger. I have a 240 by 150 I'm going to use, and that'll be perfect. I have a lining piece in order to cover up my raw edges. I actually have two pieces of fabric that actually create a little area in here that I can easily turn things around. So I have one that's 8 by 7 and another one that's 4 by 7, and this one I actually folded down and I created a nice little an edge to cover up my raw edge, and I can actually hand stitch this after the fact, or I can use some steam-a-seam or whatever to put it together. So let's get started. So to create the file you're going to use, you're going to have to do a couple of things. So let's go in here, and we're going to actually go to your sewing machine stitches, and we're going to choose, again, I have the 240 by 150 hoop. Oh, let's do a couple other things. Make sure you have your grid line showing. In the original Epic, you would go to the Joy of Sewing in order to get the pop-up so that you can add the grids. The other thing you want to do is make sure you're at 10 millimeters. So to do that on this one, Joy of Sewing in the original epic, but in the epic 2, you're going to hold this down. You're going to get this pop up. This is basically what you'll see in your Joy of Sewing on the original epic. So I've got the grid lines. If I wanted to change that 10 millimeters, and let's say you put it to 5 for whatever reason, just hold this down. Change that to 10. So we already have it at 10. This is going to let me snap to grids or snap to my sewing stitches. So I want to make sure that that's selected also. You can change your background color here if you want to. I'm just going to do OK. I'm going to go to the sewing stitches. The first thing I want to do is I want to create a basting stitch so I know where to lay my my zipper at. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here and I'm going to select stitch number 38. In the original epic, it's the same thing. So you want to look and see what the program length of that stitch is 5.0. So what I'm going to do is I need to take that, and in my head I know it's going to go across left to right. So it's 150 wide. I need to divide that out and come up with my number of stitches that I need. And I need to have 5 into 150 gives me, oh, come on, guys, 30. And so what I need to do is I just want it just short of 30. So I'm going 30 number of stitches. I'm going to hold the duplicate. I don't want it to be 30, and I already have one there, so I'm going to make this 28. And I'm going to do my check mark. So now it's there. I need to turn this so it's going to sew across. I'm going to hit my rotate. I'm going to turn 90 degrees. Now I know that it's going to sew from the right to the left because of that little dot there, and that tells me where I'm going to start. That's also my rotation, but it also gives me an idea of where things are going to start sewing at. So it's just kind of a little hint. And I want to move this up in here, and I can move it like this, or I can actually come here. I want it centered left to right, and I want it sitting at 65. So I'm going to change this to 65. Now remember, when you're doing this, you have like a center point. You just can't tell where it is. So 0 would be 0, 0, going across. 0, 0 would be somewhere in here. And then this would be a positive, this is a negative, and then if you're going this way, it's going to be a negative, and this way to a positive. It's just one of those things you learn. So I want it positive 65, so I've moved it up, and it's centered left to right. Now that's going to be my stitch that's actually going to lay down my zip, show me where I need to lay my zipper, and I'm going to lay my zipper so that it's right there at the edge. Again, I've hooped a piece of tearaway stabilizer, so I'm going to stitch this just on the stabilizer. I'm going to then lay my zipper down so the edge of the zipper is right there. So now what I want to do is duplicate this and make it another basting stitch just like this, but I want to hold that zipper in place. So I'm just going to hit duplicate, and I need to tell it where I want it to be. I want this to be 0, centered left to right, but because it's going to, I want to cut down on my number of jump stitches. I want to flip this around, so I'm actually going to go to flip it to the left. So now it's going to go right, left, left, right. But I also need it to be down a little bit. So I have it down. I have it at 60, which is about right. So it's about 5 millimeters in from the other one. So if I come here, I can see that it's up. And that's in just a little bit, so that's telling me that I'm sewing just about 5 millimeters closer to where the teeth are of the zipper. So I can actually hold that in place. This is still a basting stitch. So now what I want to do is actually stitch my fabric and my zipper together. So I'm going to do the top piece first. I need to now go, and I'm going to go back here to my stitches, and this time I'm choosing stitch number 2. Which is just a regular sewing stitch. I need to do that math again, and I'm going to hold my duplicate down, and 2.5, it really tells me I should have 60 of them. I'm not going to have 60. I want it just short of that. I'm going to make it, 58. So it's just short of the 150 wide. Hit my check mark. And again, I've got this started. Remember, it goes from here to here to here to here. Now I need to get it to sew that way again. I'm going to hit here. I'm going to hit 90 degrees. And I'm going to move this. I can move this kind of in place. I can also just go and use my keys here. I'm going to do 0, for the center. I'm going to make this at 60. Remember, the other one was at 60. So this is just going to sew right on top of those basting stitches that held my zipper in place. Now you could make this, instead of it being right on top, make this something just a little bit less, but I'm just going to leave it like it is. Works perfect. Now I need to do the bottom half. And because my zipper's already being held in place, I don't have to worry about this too much. I can actually come in here and I'm going to say, duplicate that. And I'm going to put 0 for left or right. And then I'm going to do for this way. I need to have it have about 15 millimeters difference between the other one. So remember, the other one was at 60. I'm going to subtract 15, so that makes that 45. So it's going to put it down just a little bit, and it's going to leave a space in here for my teeth of my zipper. Now, if you wanted to give it just a little bit more room, you could do that. It's going to work out just about fine. I'm going to actually come down just a little bit, just to give it a little bit more space for that zipper area. Now, the only other thing I need to do is actually create a stitch that stitches everything together. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use an applique to do that. So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to do applique. And on the epic, it's in a little different spot, but that's okay. And I just want a rectangle. So I'm going to get a square. I'm going to make sure that this is unlocked. If I select that, it's going to get larger and smaller based on both sides. So I just want to make sure that it's going to be oblong. So I need to make sure that's unlocked. I also need to make sure I have to select some kind of stitch. Even though I'm not going to do the satin, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select this one. And then I need my size. So the size I want is actually going to be 145 wide. And it's going to change it here. So what it's doing is accommodating for those satin stitches that are going in there. And then the other side I need to do, so I need it up and down, and I'm going to make that 235. I am not going to stitch those satin stitches. I am strictly going to be sewing the first stitch that goes around for that. You could actually do the first and the second. It's up to you how you want to do that, and I'm going to hit the check mark. I can go in and change each of these colors of each individual item if I wanted to. I'm not going to, because I'm not going to set it up for monochrome. I'm going to just make sure that it stops. It should stop just fine. So I've got that done. I need to save this so I have this for future use. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to hit my little heart. And I'm just going to put it in my new folder here. And I'm going to call it, get rid of all that. So now I have that saved for future use. Now I could save it to a USB. I could save it just about any place I wanted to. All right, so let's get started and actually stitch this out. Okay, so I'm going to stitch color number 1. So color number 1 is selected, and it's all black. I don't care. I just put in the thread I'm going to use, and I'm going to stitch out step number 1. Okay, so if you can see, I actually have, going across here, I have that basting stitch that's going to tell me where I need to lay my zipper. I have my zipper laid there, and I have it so that the stitches, my basting stitch, is actually right here on the very edge. I've also set this up so that my teeth are laying the little part that lets you, the little tab that lets you open your zipper is off to the right. If you notice, my zipper is much longer. You could tape this into place with a little bit of painter's tape or something like that. That's up to you. So you see I have a piece of painter's tape going and holding this on. And I'm going to take that off before I stitch on this. But I want to make sure that nothing moves while I'm doing this. I know it's hard to see because I'm using matching thread, but I actually have the basting stitch that is now sewn my zipper so it doesn't move on me. So I can do a couple of different things here. I can actually lay that top piece so it's right there next to the zipper's teeth, or I can actually pull this down just a little bit so it covers that up just a little bit. Not by much, just a little bit, so that when I put this other piece in, I'll kind of hold that out of place and stitch it, and it will kind of cover, so I could actually bring this down this far. Or for this purpose, I'm just going to go in and I'm going to actually stitch it so that I've just got it laid right there, right up against the teeth. Alright? Alright, so we're just going to do that real quick. I just realized I forgot to flip this next stitch, but it's okay. It just means I'm going to have a jump stitch across the back. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to just take that piece of painter's tape off, and then I'm going to sew my piece of fabric and just right there, just so it's right on there. Now if I had flipped that stitch, it would have actually started here, and that would have been done at the very beginning. So I forgot to do that. My fault. So again, I've got my fabric laying right there, right close to the zipper. Now the zipper is going to be exposed, but that's okay. I chose to do it that way. It just adds a little bit of interest to the actual zipper. So I'm going to sew this on. Now if you're using fabric that actually has some direction to it, you need to make sure that you're not accidentally doing the wrong side. This, I don't want to do it this way. I want to make sure that I've flipped it and actually done it this way. So I'm going to sew this last piece on, so hang on. So now my top piece above the zipper and the bottom piece to the zipper is now attached, and now I need to do some layering of all of the rest of the pieces of fabric, and then it's going to sew out that first step of the applique. Now I'm going to do the second step of the applique just so I get some really good attachment. I'm going to do the first one to actually lay so that I have my backing and my pocket in place. And then I'll do the second part of the applique, not the satin stitch part of it, but the second part of the applique to actually attach my lining. So give me a second, I'll show you my first set of layers. I placed my pocket just down so that I can actually see where it is. Now, you can place it any place you want if you want it way down here, but because I have my little sewing machine here, I wanted to make sure that it was placed up high enough so you could actually see it when everything gets attached. It'll probably come really close to this area here. Now I'm going to lay my lining piece, or my backing piece on. So hang on. Almost okay. So one of the things I forgot to tell you to do was if you wanted to put straps on this, and I'm going to actually put little straps here, and then I'll put a key ring in here, and then add a larger strap to this. And so what I want to do is I've got this is the top edge of my hoop. So I've got the fold of this piece about 2 inches down. And I measured from the outside edge, and it's about 2 inches in, somewhere in there. And then I'll do that on the other side, and then I'll lay this backing piece back up and sew that all in place. So give me a sec. Okay, so this is what my back looks like, and because I have that little jump there, I messed up. I should have done that the other way. And I'm just going to take it, I'm going to trim that off. And I'm going to trim any of the other little stitches that might be in my way and get them out of my way. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay that piece of lining that is going to let me flip around and actually cover all of those raw edges. So give me a sec. Okay, so I have put, this is the back of my hoop. So this is my lining fabric, and it's facing toward the right side is against the bottom of the hoop, and I've got it taped in place. There's my little area. This is the one that's got, I'll show you here. Remember, I folded that so that I have a nice finished seam or a finished edge there. I've got that one is closest to the actual stabilizer, and then this one is behind it. So you want to make sure you do it that way, otherwise you're going to end up with an issue of, you're going to have the raw edge showing. So I wanted it to have a finished edge inside. And also when you're laying this in here, you want to kind of make sure that your extra stitches aren't going where the zipper is actually at, because it just adds bulk, and I'm trying to avoid the bulk as much as possible. So now I've got the hoop back on, and I'm getting ready, and it's the lining, and I just kind of want to make sure if I'm looking that it's all laying nice and flat and straight on the back side, because if it's not, it's going to be an issue. And I'm looking, and it looks like it didn't get all crinkled up on me, I hope. And I'm going to sew the second part of that applique stitch. So it's not the satin stitch. What it is it's just strictly, it's going to do like that double stitch all the way around as if I was going to do the satin stitch, and then I'm stopping before I do that. Okay, so it's all done. All I need to do now is unhoop it, remove all the tearaway stabilizer, and trim it. And I like to use my rotary cutter that's kind of got the scallop along the edge, or use pinking shears or something along those lines. It allows it to kind of give it some strength. And I'm going to do that, and then I'll show you here in a second what it ends up looking like. Okay, so now I've got it all cut away. I've cut it all the way around, and I had a scallop rotary cutter I could use. I've trimmed my corners so I get nice sharp corners. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually reach in here, and this is my lining piece, remember, and I'm going to reach in here and flip it around. So give me a sec. Okay, so I have turned the first piece of my lining, and there it is. And then I'm going to take, and this is the piece that's got that folded edge, and I'm going to turn that one. So give me a sec. Okay, so now I have the other lining piece turned, and I could take a piece of schema seam or however I wanted to do that and actually lay that along here and actually seal that nice and good. Now on the other side, I've already removed all this, but this is where all that tearaway stabilizer would have been. I've ripped it all off and it's gone. But I want to kind of take this and keep it good and pressed because I kind of want to set my seams a little bit better, and then I will do the next step. Okay, so the next step is actually going to be turning this here. So you're going to make sure your zipper is all the way open, and then you're going to start turning again. You've already removed all of that tearaway stabilizer, and if you had some tape that actually taped those down, you want to remove that tape before you actually press this because you don't want that tape to get all gummy and stuff. But I'm going to just continue turning this, and again I'm going to reach down at the bottom and I'm going to turn the other part. Okay, so I have it completely turned. So there's my zipper, and I can zip that along there. Here's my pocket, which allows me to add additional things. And I actually have here's my straps. I'm going to put a couple of little round key rings there and add an actual strap to it that matches my fabric. And I've just created this, and it was all done in the machine and not using software.